So I'm going to review Mud Key and Orphan Black Echoes. And Mud Key got top of the stack. James is just having leftovers, so I figured I don't need to show you.
Well, I mean, it was some of this left over from Christmas.
Yeah.
You know, because Polly made some stuff last
Christmas
night
dinner,
that was
yeah.
less durable than yams and potatoes. And I've been using the car as a refrigerator.
Well, for that, you did.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's been cool, but not too cold.
Oh, well, it never really froze up.
Yeah, that's
you know,
amazing.
the weird thing. I had some clothing out on the line. Yeah, I do clothing, but wash it and then dry it on line. But not last night, but the night before, the clothing was stiff as a board. But
this I just had in the fridge here.
Yeah, there we go. Mixed veggies.
Right now, I mean, I am keeping things in the porch in a cooler as a second fridge.
So
that's what I do. Like when it's not too cold, but it's not too warm, and then the coolers work out great.
So you want food to stay refrigerated under 5 degrees centigrade, and
but you can put a cold, like an ice water bottle in if it's a little bit on the warm side, or just a regular water bottle if it's a little bit on the cool side, and it'll stay. So anyway, but you figure it out once you go along. So I have a bag of like produce stuff. So I have beets, and usually in the coolers I keep stuff like that, the root crops. So the beets and the carrots and whatever, they go in the cooler out in the porch, just so that I can keep other things in the fridge, you know. And the root crops don't need to be in there necessarily. They can be in potatoes. I just keep potatoes and yams. I just store them on the floor of the other porch that I have, because I mean, it's heated as a part of the house, but the floor of the porch is actually really cold. Yeah. So that works out perfect for them. I can store them there all winter long, and they're fine. Anyway,
I don't think that porch is actually that airtight.
No, I also store apples there.
There you go.
And they work
for a long
out
time.
great. They keep a long
Unfortunately, we don't have the kind of like the homegrown apples.
No.
The tree died.
Yep, that one
finally
bit it.
It was such a wonderful tree.
It was very productive.
It rarely had a lousy year for apples. It just sometimes the cherry tree, you hardly get any. Sometimes it's just amazing. But this apple was every year. Yeah. It's like clockwork.
Anyway, so Mud Key. A lefty lesbian couple and their lapdog accidentally beached their boat on a tiny remote Florida key, crashing a right-wing couple's campsite, blah, 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 whatever. And how did this get top of the stack? Well, Orphan Black is that bad. Orphan Black Echoes. It's almost unwatchable. And, I mean, I can watch almost anything.
So they crashed the beach party in Florida? Is that where you said it was? Yeah.
You get some nice scenery here. And I don't know. I mean, the one woman, it's kind of funny, right? The one woman is describing herself as a people pleaser and how she doesn't like confrontation, but she's always confronting.
Well, there's all sorts of people that way. I mean, there are all sorts of left-wingers going around saying they're for free speech, but that's their own free speech. They're all for slamming down other people's free speech. So there's all sorts of people who are that way.
So, I don't know. Would most people like this movie? Probably not. It's kind of a niche market. And honestly, it was 76 minutes long, and that was long enough for me. I am very glad they didn't make it 90.
Wow, that's only an hour and 16.
So it really wasn't that long, but
nice scenery though, just
nice
like
scenery.
You said.
Yep. And anyway, kind of funny. It might be the best lesbian movie I've watched, actually. But that's not
saying
a whole lot.
I've seen a few, and some of them seemed kind of like science fair projects, you know.
I know.
Yeah, you know what I'm
But I mean, I do like that a lot of lesbian movies, they'll have like somebody owns a bookstore or whatever, right? It's
I was just going to say that.
So I do like that, but I don't know. They're not they're not that good. Honestly, they're.
Well,
but whatever.
There's got to be exceptions somewhere.
Yeah,
just
exactly. Keep trying.
Across. Yeah.
And I mean, this one managed to make top of this stack.
No, keep trying.
So,
there's no virtue in keeping on trying unless you're actually improving. So learn from your
this
mistakes.
This one does not feature a bookstore.
Well, that there,
but
bingo, because
whatever.
that was
it's
a guaranteed thing before.
I mean, one thing, you're listening to the dog whining and you're like, okay, I'm a dog lover, but I would drown that dog.
Oh my God.
Really, who would want that dog? So I mean, the one guy is saying,
shut
that dog up,
we've had whiny dogs.
Yeah, I know. I'm exaggerating.
She's exaggerating.
Yeah. But still, you're listening to the dog, and you're feeling like the way that they made this movie, you agree with both sides in some ways, right? And so, I like that. I like what they did there. It's just the movie, maybe not so good, but whatever. It's better than a lot that I've seen. Now, Orphan Black Echoes. Wow, I really didn't think that the original Orphan Black, that any reincarnation of it or whatever, of the Orphan Black series, the original series, could be worse, but this is even worse than the original series. This is dreadful.
There's a lousy series and then they revived it?
Yeah.
Why would they do that?
I don't know. They thought they could, they managed to have a more interesting story with this one. But they didn't work hard enough to get the cast so that it's a story about a woman. She's like genetically reproduced so that she's identical. So there's lots of her, right? But yet in this, they're not identical at all. I mean, the one woman saying, no, we're more closely we look more closely alike than twins and whatever, and you're looking at them going, no, not at all. I mean, you have
not even
one
fraternal twins.
No, you have the one woman who's like the middle-aged version. I don't know, middle-aged, she's younger than me. But anyway, just middle of what ages you have represented in the show. And she's way taller. She's than the other, and it's like, how? So she gets shorter when she's older, and then she's shorter when she's a teenager. It doesn't make sense. And
so they got different people playing different ages.
And they don't work. They don't look the same. And they're supposed to look the same. And it's
if you're going to do something now, you might as well do what is that
CGI. Yeah.
Computer graphic, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, they have one man in here he's a young man, obviously. He's supposed to be an older woman's uncle. And so they put some gray hair in him. And you're like, no, this doesn't work. And anyway, so I had a hard time watching this.
He didn't have dewlaps or stuff like that.
I ended up watching or reading poetry and writing poetry more than watching this, because this was just really tough to watch. I've made it through, but wow, this is bad.
That's even with it in the background. That's amazing. Okay.
Even in the background, it's a tough sell. So maybe this is something you might want to watch while you're cooking in the next room, just to have some company in the background or something. But I can't find much of a use for this. This is really garbage TV.
And it's called
Orphan Black Echoes. And like I said, whoever was writing the story for this one, it's not their fault. The story's actually kind of interesting. But whoever was in charge of casting, wow, you ruined it for everyone. This is dreadful.
Well, it goes down to directing too. I mean,
I guess
I'd hate to be someone responsible for casting for a movie like that, and they're saying try to get people that are the same height.
Well, it'd be tough. I know. I'm not like. I understand it's a difficult thing to do, but if you're going to work with this, if this is what you're doing, you got to do it. You got to put the work in.
There's so many people looking for work in Hollywood, and it doesn't seem to me that they have very high standards for acting ability, so just...
No, and they don't in this. None of these are
so
great actresses.
I don't know. Just put out a casting call, you know?
Yeah.
Get a million people in.
Okay, well, you're back on Ezra Pound.
Ezra Pound. Pound here!
Almost 20
Pound
minutes.
talking. This is Pound. That's how he'd introduce himself on radio. Huh? I think some people might have thought that the Allies, Americans basically, when they got hold of him, they should have turned him into pound cake. He survived that. Let's see what he had to say. Aleister Crowley. Yeah. Aleister Crowley hung with William Butler Yeats for a while, but William Butler Yeats kind of believed in white magic. I don't have to tell you the kind of magic that Aleister Crowley believed in. E. Cummings seemed to have been a bit of a supporter for Ezra Pound, but E. was kind of his parents should have given him a name like Kreutzfeldt for middle names, like his third name, so second middle name. So then it'd be Eek Cummings, because that's my reaction to his poetry. It does attempt to be poetry sometimes, but it's pretty bad. Let's see. Oh yeah, Arnaud Daniel, medieval poet. Seemed to have been a guy that Ezra Pound was enthused about. I haven't run across Danielle's stuff, but I suspect it's actually written in strophic form, and I don't have to tell you, maybe I do. Ezra Pound generally didn't write in strophic form, and I am telling you, I actually prefer him, I think, when he writes in non-strophic form. So I'm sure he saw it as being through composed. It's just prose. Prose is not through composed. Like free verse is not through composed poetry. It's not like through composed music. You don't know the terminology well. Most of you people have got smartphones. Pierre, find out a technical term kind of like in music. Strophic form is where the form repeats. Through composed is not the same, but it's kind of like prose, but through composed, there's a difference between, let's say, there's different parts to what is that? Life is change, how it differs from the rocks. That's a lyric that the Jefferson airplane, before they became a starship, appropriated for, I think it's called Crown of Creation. The lyrics for Crown of Creation. You are the crown of creation. You who are the crown of creation. Kind of thing. And it's not nearly as strong as, let's say, the through composed. It's kind of like through composed second side of Abbey Road. Now, some people don't include the first 3 or so songs on that side. What are they? Here Comes the Sun. Because, not necessarily in that order. But I think it starts maybe with You Never Give Me Your Money, and it just goes all the way through. It's through composed all the way through. But you see, there are strophic forms within it. See how that works out? And that sort of stuff is, I know this is probably considered heresy, but that sort of stuff is true. In the same way that poetry, real poetry, which tends to be strophic, you can have many different forms, strophic forms, in a larger piece. William Butler Yeats wrote a lot of stuff that way in some of his later collections of poetry. Fact is, tons of stuff that way. Long pieces, but there are strophic forms included in one piece. You don't know the second side of Abbey Road? It almost comes recommended. Don't recommend buying it. Get it from the library if you can. Listen to that second side. It's Paul McCartney's musical acme, highest point. When it comes to combining music with lyrics, his highest point is, I would say, let's say, well, that part back to 1966. But 1969 was when he had his musical acme. I kind of wish he'd kept on doing that, putting together like smaller forms into larger pieces. He did it every so occasionally. Not one of his best pieces, but not really a bad piece. It's Another Day, it's called. And a better one in terms of musical form is, although still not great, not always not that good, Admiral Halsey, or what all is it? There's Hands Across the Water. It has many different parts in it. But I kind of wish he'd written whole sides, put stuff together, all running together the way they do in Abbey Road. Anyway, Arnaud Daniel. It's probably Arnold Daniel, translated in English as it were. Oh, Whittaker Chambers. Celine, Bennett Cerf. Here we go. 265, 268. Bennett Cerf. We're going through this slowly, but what the heck. Eventually we'll be going slowly through the canon. If you'd like a thought for the day. Television viewers are familiar with Mr. Bennett Cerf. As the witty and urbane judge on the program, what's my line? I've actually seen that, but I never heard about Bennett Cerf because I was a little bit too old, born a little too late. He has not always been so poised, notably when he considered the case of Ezra Pound. Although he had made a fortune from his Modern Libraries series, I think Cerf was something like maybe not a publisher, but something like a book executive, maybe, I don't know. Mr. Cerf found the Second World War a harrowing experience. Oh, Mr. Cerf found it a harrowing experience. Mr. Cerf, apparently was a Jew. And so this guy is being ironic when he's saying he found it a harrowing experience. Even for non-Jews. Anyone who had any sort of a heart, any sort of a brain, and particularly a combination of the two, would have found that a harrowing experience. It wouldn't matter if they were fighting in it, paying taxes to support the troops and the various war machines and stuff like that. That was a harrowing experience. But for a Jew would have every, not excuse, but reason for finding it a harrowing experience. But dude, here, Eugene, whatever his name is, Mullins, kind of making fun of Mr. Bennett Cerf, as he calls him, Mr. Cerf, found the Second World War a harrowing experience. The grim hand of Nazism came perilously close to his comfortable book-lined den on Madison Avenue, where he sat tormenting his brain and devising more effective ways of defending democracy. All this is supposed to be ironic. He was particularly aware of the menace to civilization as he had known it, as presented by the personage of Ezra Pound. I'm sure Bennett Cerf understood that Pound was small potatoes by comparison. Yeah, product of Idaho, small potatoes. And, gotta remember that one. That's Ezra Pound, product of Idaho, small potatoes. And I'm sure he understood only too well that the big potatoes were, rotten potatoes were Mussolini, Hitler, Hideki Tojo, so on and so forth. He was particularly aware of the menace to civilization as he had known it. So, like Mr. Bennett Cerf, according to this guy, civilization as Mr. Cerf had known it, which is not civilization, according to this idiot. Useful idiot. Useless idiot. What do you call someone who supports Nazis and communists? Even after Pound had been shut away, Mr. Cerf continued to sound the tocsin against him. The toxin's kind of like an alarm. He exhibited raw courage in 1946 when he deleted. So understand, this guy has a trouble with reference for pronouns. So Mr. Cerf continued to sound the toxin against him, which is not himself. So that refers back to Pound. In the previous clause, even after Pound had been shut away, Mr. Cerf continued to sound the toxin against him. He, which should be him, exhibited raw courage in 1946 when he deleted 12 poems by Pound. Yeah. Someone should have edited this chimp. You should have said Cerf exhibited raw courage in 1946 instead of he exhibited raw courage. But it's rampant in here. Reference for pronouns such as he are not properly connected. He exhibited raw courage in 1946 when it's not a question of courage. It's a question of justice. And sometimes you've got to deliver justice to people who aren't in a position to cause further damage. You've got to, for example, set an example. Yeah, you got to set an example. This guy was at the very least a fellow traveler, a Sputnik in Russian, for Mussolini and Hitler, and an apologist, and on apparently official Italian radio, fascist radio. Pound. You've got to set an example. The guy was regularly committing treason, and it's like he wasn't even trying to hide it. He was so stupid. Did he think the fascists and the Nazis were going to win? I'm sure he did initially. He exhibited raw courage in 1946 when he deleted 12 poems by Pound from an anthology that Conrad Aiken had compiled for the Cerf firm of Random House. So I don't know if Cerf was the actual publisher of Random House or whether he just worked for them. But yeah, he put out a series, or Random House did, called The Modern Library. I've actually got a few of those things. Some of Cerf's friends thought this might be going a bit too far, and protests against this quaint Madison Avenue custom of book burning. It's not book burning, okay? It's not book burning. Was heard from W.H. Auden. W.H. Auden wasn't that bright. I don't know if he'd made his conversion to Christianity by this point in time, 1946. But before then, he'd kind of been a little bit more than a fellow traveler. You hear in some of his poems, some of his other writings, kind of more than grudging respect for communism. But then he gave it up. Max Lerner, I don't know what Max Lerner's problem, maybe he didn't learn enough. And Robert Linscott of Cerf's own office. Some months earlier, Cerf had suggested the editors of the Saturday Review that he'd like to write a weekly column of chit-chat for them. I don't think it's chit-chat. This is kind of like chit-chat, or it's more like shit-chat, but there we go. It had long been one of their heaviest advertisers, and they were more than delighted by his offer. He used his column Trade Winds to air his perplexity over the problem of disposing of Pound and his work. So, disposing of Pound and his work. I want some actual quotes, okay? Because was he actually saying disposing of Pound? No, that makes it sound like he wanted him death penalty or something like that. You dispose of his body, and his work. In the issue of February the 9th, 1946, stung by Louis Gannett, book editor of the New York Herald Tribune, who'd called him a book burner and akin to the Nazis, Cerf replied, "Who's this Louis Gannett? Akin to the Nazis?" That's really, well, it's libel. There's, like a book burner and akin to the Nazis actually killed and burned and did whatever with people. Yeah. Cerf printed his reply, "The war is not over. You say I'm being emotional about this. Of course I am. Not bad to be emotional. The important thing is to realize what it's important to be emotional about. It's bad to be emotional and make decisions based on those emotions. But if you make rational, sensible decisions, for example, to fight Nazism, you'd better get emotional about it. To fight communism, same thing. To fight Antifa, find Donald Trump, you'd better get emotional about it. Fight Bernie Sanders, you'd better get emotional about it. You say I'm being emotional about this. Of course I am. He's being sensible too. Cerf appealed to his readers for support. In March 16, 1946, the issue reported that readers had sent in 289 opinions on his deletion of Pound's poems from the anthology. Said that 142 opposed the inclusion of Pound's poems, 140 approved or wished that he'd included them. Several respondents said that they hadn't been able to make up their minds. Despite the remarkably even distribution of opinion on this very controversial matter. Very controversial is something that's actually of real import. This guy's a traitor. You know, like he's lucky he's alive. Back then they had the death penalty for treason. Cerf admitted that the omission of Pound's work was an error in judgment to be rectified as soon as possible. He added, I still think that Ezra Pound and men like him are the scum of the earth. Yeah. They're worse scum like Hitler and Mussolini, but this guy's the scum of the earth. The traitor to, not the United States so much as to democracy. All the democracies. And he must be fought without quarter and without cease. And that's true. You've got to fight these guys. Hopefully you can do it peacefully, but they're, you know, like Nazis and fascists don't believe in peace. In this particular issue, however, I went charging off the wrong course. You see, like, he actually backed down. Cerf then printed several pages of excerpts from the opinions of his readers. Doesn't sound like a book birder, does it? These are priceless, but we can only reprint a few of them. They, after all, represent but a small number of the 289 that Cerf had said he received. Said he received? I'm sure he did. Said he received. What's that? Norman Rustin wrote, Mr. Pound is a traitor. Yeah, that's true. And he should be shot. He should have been condemned to being shot or hung or electrocuted or whatever, but with automatic commutation to life imprisonment without parole, any chance of parole. And I would be this is Mr. Rustin, I would be the first to join the firing squad for that purpose. So this guy says these opinions are priceless. They really are priceless, you know, not priceless in the ironic sense. Robert Hillier wrote, I said there was no question that Pound should be omitted from the anthology. Now, there actually be, you know, like it should be non-controversial. Pound is not a poet. So if this was an anthology of presumably, poems. Well, they're called 12 poems by Pound. This guy didn't really write poetry. Every so occasionally he'd do something that was strophic in form, but by the time he hit the cantos, it was just all prose garbage. It's not even good prose in the sense of being sensible. Sure, I've run out of time, but how much time?
No, you have 7 seconds.
7 seconds. So tune in for more.